absolutely. I moved to New York about 22 and a half years ago on the heels of putting up Des's production of The Who's Tommy outside Frankfurt. And I felt then ready to move to New York because I will direct Broadway musicals. And so then 22 and a half years later, I'm directing my first musical on Broadway. Because you come to a city and your collaborators and the people that you meet, all of a sudden I was working downtown, I was doing new plays for the first time, I was sitting in rooms with playwrights, and that's where sort of my world took me. A small theater company in Philadelphia was doing a play by Edward Albee, and all of a sudden I was having coffee with Edward, and it was a play that he had only seen once before, a play about the baby, and he was very interested. So all of a sudden I'm doing plays. He became, sort of a very important friend, a very important mentor, sort of a gateway person to larger regional theaters, et cetera, et cetera. So you go where your career, both interest as well as cohort, kind of leads you. Now, I do think, I assisted Des, on A Much Ado About Nothing, and Tommy, and then moving to New York, when you took over High Society, we came in and did that. Shouldn't talk about that. I assisted Anne Bogart on Claire Booth Luce's The Women. I assisted Dan Sullivan on Moon for the Misbegotten, was doing new plays, but they're sort of all of a piece. And I kind of, the three people, and all of a sudden I'm making this a protege-mentor conversation, and that's not what you asked me. But, the three directors that I sat next to in rehearsal halls and tech and previews are very different directors. And I think what I learned from that experience was that as a young director, you need to, I think of directing as a very conversational art form. And I surround myself with experts in the visual arts, in the performing arts, actors, and I am the person who talks to everybody and facilitates and comes in, certainly with a vision. But it's like working and with Des on a couple big musicals, and then switching gears, doing my own smaller plays. It was all about throwing my interest and myself into the room, and working beat by beat, uncovering what is story, uncovering what is action. You're right, in a musical I do feel at times I can turn to my left and say, okay, we've talked a lot about story, and now Sam Pinkleton, my choreographer, it's actually your job, I'm turning the room over to you, it's your job to now stage it for that moment. And then, so it's at once an opportunity, but also a deep responsibility. But it all feels like storytelling, and it all feels deeply, deeply personal.
Well, you're now storytelling with Philippa Sue. What's that like? I think there's probably a few people who are like Philippa Sue here. Is that okay? So how's that going?
It's great. She did a lot of our early Amélie workshops. And simultaneous with that, she was doing the original productions of Natasha and Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. Simultaneous with that, she was also workshopping this show called Hamilton. And so when we did the first production of Amélie at Berkeley Rep, Philippa had to make a choice. Like, she was, I have 3 jobs, and which job? And she pursued Hamilton, and now she is the title character, and she's come back to it. She is a real deal, at times comedian, which I kind of didn't know. There's a real Lucille Ball in her that is deep and sort of like that Bert Lahr kind of comedian of going as deep and as absurdist but making you laugh. She also can move and, dare I say, dance, and she also just has this well of humanity to draw from at, she's a woman in her mid-20s, I don't know where that happens, and she's a real adult force in the room. And I also think her experience with Hamilton, and watching Lin-Manuel she knows what it is to be a company leader, and she takes that on, as this is my job. You know, so for instance, at our Sitzprobe in Los Angeles at the Amundsen, she, you know, shook hands with every musician. And, you know, and sort of like, she recognizes both the joy of being at the center of a company, but also you have to have the broad shoulders for it.
And that's smart. That's a smart thing to do, to have your team behind you.